My childhood best friend's boyfriend *ped me 10 years ago. I kept quiet but revealed it when they got married, so everyone blames me. What would you do if someone close to you harbored a secret so shocking it shattered your entire family? That's exactly what happened to me when I discovered my stepmom's hidden Reddit account. At first, it seemed harmless, just some posts about being a stepparent. But the more I read, the more horrifying the truth became. She hated us, me, my siblings, and the life she'd chosen. Worse, she was plotting to drive us out of the house. When the truth came out, it sent shockwaves through our family. The fallout was devastating, leaving us fractured and struggling to pick up the pieces. But through the pain, we found a way to rebuild, this time on a foundation of honesty and trust. This is the story of how one discovery tore my family apart and how, against all odds, we began to heal. If you've ever wondered whether the truth is worth the cost, this story might change the way you see everything. Hey Reddit, I need to get this off my chest because it's been weighing on me for years. This is the start of a story I wish I didn't have to tell, a story about how my best friend and her boyfriend became central to the worst thing that's ever happened to me. The beginning of a beautiful friendship. When I was 14, I met Mia. She was new to our school, quiet and shy, but we clicked instantly. I was one of the loud, sarcastic kids who hid my insecurities behind jokes, and Mia was the soft-spoken one who always saw the good in everyone. We balanced each other out perfectly. We became inseparable. Sleepovers, late-night talks about boys and dreams, passing notes in class, it felt like we were sisters. My life was better because of Mia, and I think hers was better because of me. At 16, Mia started dating Jake. He was 18 and a senior, with the kind of charm that made teachers roll their eyes and girls swoon. He was tall, athletic, and always the center of attention at parties. Mia was smitten, and for a while, I was happy for her. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Jake wasn't as perfect as he seemed. Jake's charm and my unease. From the moment I met Jake, something about him put me on edge. He was confident, too confident, and his jokes often had a cruel undertone. Once, when Mia introduced us, he looked me up and down and said, "So you're the sidekick?" He laughed, and Mia did too, but the comments stuck with me. As their relationship grew more serious, Jake seemed to dominate more and more of Mia's attention. She started skipping our hangouts to spend time with him, and when we were together, all she could talk about was Jake, his soccer games, his plans for college, how amazing he was. I wanted to be happy for her, but I couldn't help feeling like I was losing my best friend. The night it began. One night, when we were all hanging out at a friend's house, Jake made an offhand comment that still echoes in my mind. We were playing some stupid card game, and Mia was teasing me about how bad I was at it. Jake smirked and said, "Well, she's not as fun as you, babe." Everyone laughed, but the words stung. It wasn't just what he said, it was the way he said it, like I was inferior, like I didn't matter as much. Mia didn't even notice. She just kept laughing and leaning into him, completely oblivious to how his words had cut me. I tried to shrug it off, telling myself it didn't matter. Jake was Mia's boyfriend, not mine. As long as she was happy, that's what mattered, right? But looking back, that comment was the first crack in a foundation I didn't even know was breaking. It planted a seed of insecurity in me, a feeling that I didn't belong in their perfect world. Foreshadowing a nightmare. At the time, I couldn't have imagined what was coming. I didn't know that Jake's charm was a mask or that his subtle jabs at me were just the beginning. I didn't realize that my best friend's boyfriend would soon become the person who would change my life forever in the worst way possible. If I had, maybe I would have spoken up sooner. Maybe I would have warned Mia or distanced myself. But I didn't. I stayed quiet, telling myself everything was fine. Reddit, this is just the start of my story, and I'll share more soon. For now, I just needed to tell someone how it all began. Hey Reddit, this is one of the hardest things I've ever written, but I need to get it out. This is the part of my story that changed my life forever, the night Jake, my best friend Mia's boyfriend, did the unthinkable. The party. We were 18, just finishing high school, and Mia invited me to a party at Jake's house. I didn't really want to go. I'd been avoiding Jake as much as possible, but Mia insisted. "It'll be fun," she said. "Just a small group. You never come to these things anymore." I didn't want to let her down, so I went. At first, it was fine. There were maybe 10 people there, all sitting around drinking, laughing, and listening to music. Mia was glued to Jake's side, as always, but she made an effort to include me in the conversations. For a little while, I almost felt normal, like maybe I'd been overthinking my unease about Jake. But that didn't last long. Mia leaves. Halfway through the night, Mia got a phone call from her mom. Her little brother had fallen and broken his arm, and she needed to leave immediately to help. She apologized profusely, promising she'd come back if she could. "Jake will make sure you get home safely," she said as she hugged me goodbye. I wanted to leave with her, but she told me to stay and enjoy myself. "You deserve to have fun," she said. If only I had left when she did. The nightmare begins. After Mia left, the party started winding down. One by one, people filtered out until it was just me, Jake, and 2 others. I texted for a ride but was told it'd be a while. I stayed in the living room, scrolling on my phone and trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. Eventually, the other 2 people left, and it was just Jake and me. "You don't have to wait in here," he said, leaning against the doorway. "Come hang out in the kitchen. I'll make you a drink." I told him I was fine, but he persisted. "Don't be boring," he said, holding out a glass with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. I declined again, but he didn't take no for an answer. He blocked the door when I tried to leave, his body towering over mine. "Come on," he said, his tone shifting from playful to something darker. "It's just a drink." The assault. What happened next is seared into my memory. Jake cornered me in the hallway, his smile fading into something predatory. He grabbed my wrist, pulling me toward his room. I froze, my brain screaming at me to run, to fight, but my body wouldn't move. The smell of alcohol was overwhelming, and his grip was like iron. I tried to push him away, to say no, but he didn't care. He shoved me onto the bed, and I felt all the air leave my lungs. I don't know how long it lasted. It felt like an eternity and a split second all at once. When it was over, I lay there in shock, unable to process what had just happened. Jake leaned down, his face inches from mine. "Who do you think Mia will believe?" he whispered. "Me or you?" The aftermath. I managed to leave the house, numb and shaking, but the weight of his words stayed with me. I couldn't tell Mia. I couldn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? Jake was the golden boy, charming, successful, adored by Mia and everyone else. That night marked the beginning of a decade-long silence. I buried it, convinced that speaking up would destroy everything. But the truth has a way of clawing its way to the surface, no matter how deep you try to hide it. Reddit, this is just part of my story. Writing it down feels like reopening an old wound, but maybe it's time I stopped carrying this burden alone. Hey Reddit, this is another piece of my story. After that horrific night with Jake, my best friend Mia's boyfriend, I kept quiet. I thought silence would protect everyone, Mia, myself, the life we'd built together as friends. Instead, it just tore me apart from the inside out. The first days of silence. After that night, I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone. Not Mia, not my parents, not the police. Jake's words echoed in my mind every time I thought about speaking up. Who do you think Mia will believe? Me or you? He wasn't wrong. Jake was everything Mia adored, her high school sweetheart, her future. If I told her what he'd done, I was terrified it would ruin her life. Or worse, she wouldn't believe me, and I'd lose her completely. So, I stayed silent. I convinced myself it was the right thing to do, that I could move on without dragging anyone else into my pain. Avoidance became my shield. I avoided Jake like the plague. When Mia invited me to hang out with him, I always had an excuse ready. I'm busy. I have homework. My parents need me at home. She noticed, of course. Are you mad at Jake? She asked once, her tone light but curious. No, I lied. I just have a lot going on. You used to like him, she said, a little hurt. Did something happen? No, I said again, forcing a smile. Everything's fine. But everything wasn't fine. I couldn't stand the thought of being in the same room as him, of seeing his smug smile or hearing his fake charm. The idea of pretending everything was normal made me feel physically sick. The weight of the trauma. Time passed, but the trauma stayed with me. I replayed that night over and over, questioning every decision I made. Why hadn't I fought harder? Why hadn't I screamed louder? Why hadn't I told Mia the moment it happened? Every time I saw Jake on Mia's social media, grinning in photos, holding her hand, I felt like I was drowning. He got to live his life without consequences, while I carried the weight of what he'd done in silence. Sometimes I'd lie awake at night, imagining what might have happened if I'd told Mia back then. Would she have believed me? Would she have left him? Or would she have stayed with him, forcing me to watch as he thrived while I fell apart? The what-ifs were endless and exhausting. Drifting from Mia. Mia and I stayed friends, but our relationship was never the same. The closer she got to Jake, the more distant I became. She noticed, of course, but she didn't push. You've been weird lately, she said once, during one of our rare sleepovers. Did I do something wrong? No, I said, my voice cracking. Then what is it? She pressed. I'm just stressed, I lied. She gave me a sad smile. You can tell me anything, you know. The irony of her words almost made me laugh. I wanted to tell her, God, I wanted to tell her so badly, but every time I opened my mouth, Jake's voice came back to haunt me. Who do you think Mia will believe? Me or you? Years of silence. The years blurred together, but the pain never faded. I built a life for myself far away from our hometown, but the trauma followed me wherever I went. I could never fully escape that night, no matter how hard I tried. Mia and Jake stayed together, their relationship growing stronger. Watching them from afar felt like watching a wound reopen again and again. Every photo, every update, every cheerful text from Mia was a reminder of the secret I'd been carrying for so long. And through it all, I kept silent. Because I was scared. Because I didn't want to ruin Mia's happiness. Because I thought I could handle it. But the truth is, staying silent only made the pain worse. And as much as I tried to move on, I knew that someday, the truth would come out, whether I wanted it to or not. Reddit, thanks for reading. Writing this down feels like lifting a weight off my chest, even if it's just for a moment. If you've ever carried a secret like this, you're not alone. Hey Reddit, it's been 10 years since something happened that changed my life forever. For a decade, I've carried a secret that I never planned to tell anyone, especially not my best friend, Mia. But now, I feel like everything is unraveling, and I don't know what to do. A stable life. Or so I thought. By 28, I had managed to piece my life back together. I moved to another city, found a steady job, and tried to put the past behind me. Mia and I weren't as close as we'd been growing up, but we still talked now and then. She would text me updates about her life, and I'd send back the obligatory, "So happy for you," even when it stung. We drifted apart, but she was still someone I loved dearly, someone I wanted to protect, even from the truth. The call that changed everything. A few weeks ago, Mia called me out of the blue. I have big news, she said, her voice bubbling with excitement. I smiled instinctively, happy to hear her so joyful. What's up? I'm engaged, she squealed. Jake proposed last night, and it was perfect. I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with him. The smile on my face froze, and my stomach dropped like a stone. My mind immediately flashed back to that night 10 years ago, to the way Jake had cornered me, his voice dripping with malice. Who do you think Mia will believe? Me or you? I felt like I couldn't breathe, but Mia kept talking, oblivious to my reaction. She gushed about how he'd proposed on a beach at sunset, how they'd cried happy tears, and how she couldn't wait for me to meet her dress designer. Then she said the words that felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I want you to be my maid of honor. Freezing in place. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My mind was racing, my chest tight. How could I stand beside her at the altar, smiling and pretending everything was fine? How could I watch Jake pledge his love to Mia while knowing what he'd done to me? Are you still there? Mia asked, her voice breaking through my thoughts. Yeah, I said quickly, trying to keep my voice steady. That's amazing news, Mia. I'm so happy for you. Will you be my maid of honor? She asked again, her tone almost pleading. I need some time to think about it, I mumbled. Work's been crazy lately. Of course, she said, not missing a beat. Take all the time you need. But it would mean the world to me if you said yes. The breaking point. When the call ended, I sat on the floor of my apartment, shaking. The walls felt like they were closing in, and my thoughts were a chaotic swirl of panic and guilt. That night, I had a full-blown panic attack. My chest felt like it was being crushed, my breathing shallow and ragged. I kept picturing Jake's face, his smug grin, his cruel words. And then I imagined myself at the wedding, standing beside Mia in a pastel dress, forced to watch as they vowed to love each other forever. I couldn't do it. I couldn't. But what choice did I have? A decision to make. I've been trying to figure out what to do ever since. Do I tell Mia the truth? Do I risk ruining her happiness, her future, her trust in me? Or do I stay silent, like I have for the past 10 years, and let her marry a man who destroyed a part of me? Reddit, I don't know what to do. The thought of staying silent makes me feel like a coward, but the thought of speaking up feels like setting fire to everything. How do you choose between protecting someone you love and protecting yourself? Hey Reddit, I wish I had an easier story to tell, but here we are. This is about the day I finally told Mia, my best friend, what her fiancé Jake did to me 10 years ago. It's been eating me alive ever since. The meeting. A month before Mia's wedding, she texted me, excited to finalize plans for her big day. I suggested we meet for coffee, my stomach twisting as I hit send. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but I knew I couldn't stand silently beside her at the altar, pretending everything was fine. We met at a small cafe we used to visit as teenagers, a place filled with happy memories. Mia was glowing, talking nonstop about her wedding dress, the venue, the honeymoon. I tried to smile, but my throat felt like it was closing. Are you okay? She asked, pausing mid-sentence. I need to tell you something, I said, my voice trembling. The truth comes out. Mia's smile faltered. What's wrong? She asked, her brow furrowing with concern. I took a deep breath, my hands gripping my coffee cup so tightly I thought it might shatter. Mia, Jake, he assaulted me 10 years ago. Her face froze, her eyes widening in shock. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I told her everything, the party, how she'd left early, how Jake had cornered me, how he'd overpowered me and silenced me with his threats. My voice cracked as I recounted the details, my tears falling into my untouched coffee. I didn't tell you because I was scared, I said. I didn't know if you'd believe me. And then as time went on, I didn't know how to tell you. Mia stared at me, her hands trembling as she set down her cup. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but they weren't tears of empathy. They were tears of anger. Her reaction. Why are you telling me this now? She demanded, her voice shaking. You've had 10 years to say something, and you wait until now? Right before my wedding? Because I didn't want to hurt you, I said, my voice breaking. I didn't want to ruin your happiness. But I can't let you marry him without knowing the truth. Mia shook her head, her tears spilling over. You expect me to just believe this? That Jake, The man I've loved for over a decade, did something so horrible? I felt like I was being punched in the gut. I'm not making this up, I said desperately. Why would I lie about something like this? I have nothing to gain, Mia. I just need you to know the truth. The blame. She stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. You should have told me back then, she said coldly. If this really happened, why didn't you go to the police? Why didn't you say anything? Because he told me no one would believe me, I said, tears streaming down my face. Because I was scared, Mia. I was scared of losing you, scared of what he might do. Her face was unreadable as she grabbed her purse. I need time to think about this, she said, her voice distant. I watched her walk out of the cafe, leaving me alone with my cold coffee and the crushing weight of everything I'd just unleashed. What now? That was 2 days ago. I haven't heard from Mia since. I've spent every moment replaying the conversation, questioning if I did the right thing, if I should have stayed silent. Reddit, I don't know what to do. I told the truth because I thought it was the right thing, but now I feel like I've destroyed everything. Does telling the truth even matter if no one believes you? Hey Reddit, it's been a week since I told Mia the truth about her fiancé, Jake, and everything has spiraled out of control. I thought speaking up was the right thing to do, but now I'm not so sure. I feel like I've lost everything, my best friend, my reputation, and the little piece I had managed to build over the years. Mia confronts Jake. The day after I told Mia about the assault, she confronted Jake. I don't know exactly what was said, but I can imagine how it went. Jake is nothing if not a master manipulator. He's charming, quick on his feet, and knows how to spin a story to make himself look like the victim. Mia texted me later that evening. Her message was short and cold. I talked to Jake. He said you're lying. He thinks you're jealous of us. I can't believe you'd make something like this up. I stared at the screen, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I knew Jake would deny it. I even prepared myself for the possibility that Mia might not believe me. But reading those words, I can't believe you'd make something like this up, hurt more than I expected. The Whisper campaign. It didn't take long for the story to spread. Our mutual friends, some of whom I hadn't seen in years, suddenly had a lot to say about me. Apparently, Jake and Mia had shared their side of the story, that I was jealous of their relationship, bitter because Mia's life was going so well while mine wasn't. One mutual friend, Sarah, called me to ask, why would you say something like that about Jake? He's always been so nice to you. I tried to explain, but she cut me off. You should have said something 10 years ago if it was true, she said. Doing this now, right before their wedding, makes you look vindictive. The worst part was hearing people question my motives. If it really happened, why didn't she tell anyone sooner, they whispered. Why didn't she go to the police? Why would she wait until now? No one seemed to understand how terrifying it was to stay silent, how Jake's threats haunted me for years, how I was scared of losing Mia or being called a liar. Losing Mia. Mia hasn't spoken to me since her text. She's blocked me on social media and hasn't answered my calls. The friendship we built over a decade is gone, and I don't think it's coming back. I know she's hurt. I know she feels betrayed. But I can't understand how she can ignore everything I told her, how she can side with a man who destroyed me. Losing everything else. I've lost more than just Mia. Friends I thought would support me have distanced themselves. Some have outright accused me of trying to sabotage Mia's happiness. I've heard people calling me jealous, bitter, a liar. Even my parents, who have always supported me, seemed hesitant when I told them what was happening. Why didn't you tell us back then? My mom asked gently. It's just, the timing makes it hard to believe. That question, why didn't you tell someone sooner, has become a constant refrain, like a knife twisting deeper every time it's asked. Feeling like the villain. I've become the villain of this story. Mia is the heartbroken bride, Jake is the wrongfully accused fiancé, and I'm the jealous friend trying to ruin their happiness. It doesn't matter that I told the truth. It doesn't matter that I've carried this pain for 10 years. Reddit, I don't know where to go from here. I told the truth because I thought it was the right thing to do, but now I've lost everything. Was it worth it? Does the truth even matter when no one believes you? Hey Reddit, I didn't think it could get worse after Mia refused to believe me and Jake painted me as a liar. But the past week has shown me how wrong I was. Despite everything I told her, despite the truth I shared, Mia went through with the wedding. And watching it unfold from a distance was one of the most gut-wrenching experiences of my life. The day of the wedding. I knew the wedding date, of course. Mia had talked about it endlessly before everything blew up. I thought I'd prepared myself, but when the day came, it hit me like a freight train. I wasn't invited, obviously. Mia and I haven't spoken since she blocked me, and our mutual friends have all but ghosted me. But that didn't stop the photos from flooding my social media feeds. The photos. The first one I saw was on Sarah's profile, a picture of Mia and Jake at the altar, beaming at each other. Mia looked radiant in her dress, her smile glowing with happiness. Jake, standing beside her in his suit, looked like the picture-perfect groom. I felt sick. How could she marry him after what I told her? How could everyone stand there, clapping and cheering, knowing what he did? The photos kept coming. The first dance, the cake cutting, the sparkler send-off. Every comment was full of praise. Mia, you're the most beautiful bride. Jake, you're such a lucky guy. Congratulations to the perfect couple. It was like my revelation had never happened. Like no one cared about what I said, what I'd been through, what Jake had done to me. Feeling erased. Seeing those photos and comments felt like the ultimate betrayal. It was like the world was gaslighting me, telling me that none of it mattered, that I was the problem for speaking up. Mia's other friends, people I'd once been close to, posted group pictures from the wedding with captions like, celebrating love and friendship. I wasn't in those pictures. I wasn't part of that friendship anymore. For 10 years, I carried the weight of that night in silence. I finally found the courage to speak up, to tell the truth, and it was like screaming into the void. No one heard me, or worse, no one cared. What hurt the most? The worst photo came 2 days later, when Mia updated her profile picture to one of her and Jake kissing under an arch of roses. Her caption read, "The happiest day of my life." I stared at it for what felt like hours. All I could think was, how can this be her happiest day, when it's the day she married the man who destroyed me? It wasn't just the wedding. It was the message it sent, that Jake could do something so horrific and still get everything he wanted. That Mia could dismiss my pain so easily. That everyone else could celebrate while I sat at home, crying into my pillow. The isolation. Since the wedding, I've barely left my apartment. I've unfollowed most of our mutual friends, blocked Jake, and muted Mia. But it doesn't stop the memories from haunting me. It doesn't stop the guilt or the questions. Did I handle it wrong? Should I have spoken up sooner? Should I have stayed silent? Why I'm writing this? Reddit, I'm writing this because I feel like I'm disappearing. Like Jake didn't just take my voice that night, he's still taking it now. And Mia, the person I thought would always have my back, has helped him do it. How do you move on when the world erases your pain? How do you heal when everyone treats you like you're the villain for telling the truth? Hey Reddit, this is my final update. The last few months have been a roller coaster of emotions, but I think I can finally see some light at the end of the tunnel. Karen's secret Reddit account exposed the cracks in our family that we'd all been trying to ignore, but her departure has given us a chance to rebuild, this time on a foundation of honesty and trust. Rebuilding after the fallout. When Karen left, the house felt like a ghost town. It wasn't just her absence, it was the weight of everything she left behind. Her lies, her resentment, and the tension that had silently grown over the years were finally out in the open. For a while, it was hard to know how to move forward. But slowly, things began to change. Emily, who had stopped painting entirely after Karen's cruel comments about her art, finally picked up her brushes again. One afternoon, I found her in the dining room, a canvas propped up in front of her. She was painting sunflowers, her favorite subject. "I thought you were done with art," I said softly, not wanting to startle her. "I was," she replied without looking up. "But I realized. Karen doesn't get to decide if I'm good enough. I do." Hearing that was like a balm on an open wound. Karen's words had hurt Emily deeply, but they hadn't broken her. Watching her rediscover her passion was one of the most inspiring things I've ever seen. Ryan's smile returns. Ryan took longer to bounce back. At 10, he didn't fully understand why Karen had left, but he felt the shift in the household. He stopped asking, "Did I do something wrong?" after Dad sat him down and reassured him, over and over, that none of this was his fault. "Sometimes adults make mistakes," Dad told him. "And Karen made some big ones. But you're not to blame, Ryan. You're a great kid, and you're so loved." Hearing Dad say that, not just to Ryan, but to all of us, was something we hadn't heard enough of in recent years. It wasn't just Karen's absence that made the house feel lighter, it was Dad stepping up and reminding us that we mattered. Dad's efforts to rebuild. Dad has changed too. He's more present now, more involved in our lives. He doesn't just ask how our day was, he listens. He makes an effort to spend time with each of us individually, whether it's watching Ryan play soccer, helping Emily set up an art show at school, or just sitting with me to talk about life. "I should have seen it sooner," he told me one night while we were watching a movie together. "I thought Karen was good for us, but I ignored the signs. I won't make that mistake again." What I've learned. As for me, I've learned that some truths, no matter how painful, have to be spoken. Karen's lies and secret posts were like a toxin, poisoning our family from the inside out. Exposing them was painful, it shattered the illusion of our perfect family, but it also set us free. Silence only gives power to those who don't deserve it. By staying quiet, I would have let Karen's resentment fester and grow. By speaking up, I helped my family see the truth and start to heal. To anyone reading this, if you've been hurt by someone you trusted, know that your story matters. Telling the truth might shatter everything, but sometimes, that's necessary. Maybe the lie was holding together something that was never meant to stand in the first place. Thanks for listening, Reddit. This is the end of my story, but it's also the beginning of a new chapter for my family. For the first time in a long time, I feel like we're going to be okay.